In the deep, dark waters of the Yucatan Channel, where the Gulf of Mexico meets the Caribbean Sea, the pressure is a crushing 100 atmospheres. At over 2,000 feet down, a half-mile from the sunlit world, lies a realm of eternal night. This is the abyssal plain off the Guanajuatabibes Peninsula, the westernmost tip of Cuba, a UNESCO-protected biosphere on the surface, teeming with life. But below, in the cold, silent dark, it was long thought to be a barren, muddy expanse. That all changed in the year 2000, when a sonar screen aboard a research vessel lit up with an image that defied all geological logic. An image that, according to the known history of humanity, simply should not exist. The sonar painted a picture of impossible geometry on the ocean floor. Symmetrically organized stones, long, linear features that looked like avenues, and towering, pyramid-like shapes with sharp, defined edges. The formations were vast, covering an area of nearly 5 acres. It appeared to be a city, frozen in time and drowned by the sea. It was a discovery that could rewrite human history, challenging our entire understanding of the ancient world. And then, almost as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, not from the seafloor, but from the world's headlines. Today, it is a ghost, a whisper on the fringes of the internet, a deep-sea enigma that begs the question, why does nobody talk about the city in the sea? An accidental discovery. The story begins not with archaeologists seeking a lost civilization, but with a mission of a very different sort. It begins with Paulina Zalitsky, a character as complex as the mystery itself. A Soviet-born coastal marine engineer, Zalitsky was once part of the Cold War's secret machinery, having worked on a clandestine Soviet nuclear submarine base in Cienfuegos, Cuba. After defecting to Canada, she and her husband, Paul Weinsweig, founded a company called Advanced Digital Communications, or ADC. In the late 1990s, they had a unique contract with the Cuban government to use their advanced mapping technology to hunt for a far more common prize: Spanish galleons from the colonial era laden with treasure. Aboard their vessel, the Ulises, they methodically swept the unexplored territory using state-of-the-art side-scan sonar. This technology is the ear of the deep-sea explorer, sending out pulses of sound that bounce off the seafloor. The returning echoes are then translated into a detailed topographical image, painting a black and white picture of the unseen depths. For months, the work was routine: mud, sand, occasional rock outcroppings. Then, in the summer of 2000, the sonar returns began to show something extraordinary. These were not the scattered, chaotic debris fields of shipwrecks. They were too large, too orderly, too geometric. The team stared at their screens in disbelief. The patterns were clearly, unmistakably artificial. They saw what looked like city blocks, roads intersecting at perfect right angles, and massive mounds with the distinct, symmetrical profile of pyramids. They had stumbled upon something far more valuable than gold. They had found an entire city where no city could be. The evidence of Atlantis. The news, when it finally broke to the world in 2001, was electric. A lost city off the coast of Cuba? The media immediately invoked the most powerful legend of the deep, Atlantis. ADC, cautious but undeniably excited, returned to the site, this time armed with a remotely operated vehicle, an ROV, to act as their eyes on the seabed. What the ROV's cameras allegedly revealed was even more stunning than the sonar scans. They described massive blocks of stone cut with a precision that seemed to rival the work of the Incas in Peru. The stones were reported to be smooth and dressed, measuring between 6 and 15 feet in length. Most astonishingly, they were described as being granite-like. Granite is an igneous rock, a signature of continental landmasses, not typically found on the deep ocean floor. Its presence was a hard geological puzzle. The blocks appeared to be deliberately stacked, forming the foundations of walls and the outlines of buildings. To deepen the mystery, Zalitsky later claimed that a Cuban anthropologist viewing the footage identified what looked like symbols and inscriptions carved into the stones. This was the most explosive claim of all. Written language from a civilization that existed before the floodplains of Mesopotamia? The implications were staggering. If these were man-made structures, they had to be ancient. But how ancient? Based on local geology and established models of sea level rise, some initial estimates suggested the city could be 6,000 years old, predating the Great Pyramids of Giza by more than a millennium. A new chapter of human history was seemingly waiting to be written. The scientific wall. As the incredible story spread, the global scientific community began to weigh in. And their reaction was a cold, hard dose of reality. The excitement was met with deep, fundamental skepticism. The first and most significant problem was the depth. How could a coastal city end up 2,300 feet below the surface of the sea? The only logical geological explanation was subsidence. The land itself must have sunk. This is where Manuel Iturralde Venente, a highly respected marine geologist from Cuba's National Museum of Natural History, entered the picture. Initially intrigued by the sonar images, he analyzed the data through the uncompromising lens of geological time. His conclusion was stark. For that specific piece of the Cuban landmass to sink to such a depth naturally would have taken, by his calculation, a minimum of 50,000 years. 50,000 years. This date presented an insurmountable problem. 50,000 years ago, during the last ice age, humanity looked very different. Homo sapiens were still largely nomadic hunter-gatherers. The idea that any human culture from that period possessed the social organization, the resources, and the architectural technology to build a massive stone metropolis was, from an archaeological perspective, impossible. There is no evidence anywhere on Earth for such a civilization. Famed oceanographer Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic, was equally dismissive of the sonar images themselves, cautioning that sonar can be like a Rorschach test for the deep sea, where one can see patterns in what he called ink blots. The city was, as one expert stated, out of time and out of place. The claims, as extraordinary as they were, had run headfirst into a scientific wall. Nature's deception. So, if it wasn't a city, what were Zalitsky and Weinsweg looking at? The answer, according to geologists, lies in nature's own astonishing power to create illusions of order. The seafloor off western Cuba is a geologically violent place. It's near the boundary of the North American tectonic plate, an area prone to earthquakes and massive underwater landslides, a phenomenon known as submarine mass failure. Imagine the scene 10,000 years ago. A powerful earthquake shakes the prehistoric coastline of Cuba. A colossal slab of the continental shelf, miles wide, breaks free and collapses into the abyss. As it tumbles and shatters down the steep slope, it creates a vast, chaotic field of enormous, sharp-edged blocks. This debris field is called megabreccia. In the low-resolution black and white world of a sonar survey, this jumbled field of giant, angular rocks could easily be misinterpreted as the collapsed ruins of buildings. But what about the perfect right angles and street grids? The explanation for this is an equally fascinating geological process called orthogonal jointing. As layers of sedimentary rock like limestone or sandstone form, tectonic stress can create networks of fractures, or joints. Sometimes, these stresses align perfectly to create two sets of joints that intersect at near 90-degree angles. Think of how a pane of tempered glass shatters, or how mudflats dry and crack into grid-like patterns. Over thousands of years, water erosion works along these perpendicular lines of weakness, carving out what looks like a perfectly planned grid. Nature, it seems, is a master architect, capable of creating geometric forms that the human eye is hardwired to see as man-made. This is a story repeated at other controversial sites, from the famous Bimini Road in the Bahamas to the underwater cliffs of Yonaguni, Japan, each fueling a passionate debate between believers in lost worlds and geologists who see the elegant, powerful, and deceptive hand of nature at work. The anatomy of silence. Even if it was just a geological wonder, why did the story simply die? Why no definitive myth-busting expedition from National Geographic, which showed initial interest? The silence is the heart of the mystery, and its cause was a perfect storm of immense, real-world obstacles. First, there was the staggering, almost prohibitive cost. A full-scale archaeological and geological survey at that depth is a monumental undertaking. The daily operating cost of a single deep-sea research vessel can run into the tens of thousands of dollars. Add to that the price of specialized submersibles, high-resolution sonar arrays, and a massive support team, and the budget quickly runs into the millions. Without strong conviction from mainstream scientists that there was something real to find, securing that kind of funding from academic or government institutions was impossible. Second, there was the chilling effect of global politics. This was Cuban territorial waters. During the early 2000s, the U.S. embargo against Cuba was firmly in place. This created a bureaucratic nightmare for any serious American-backed research effort. A small Canadian company like ADC found itself in a difficult position, caught between two worlds, unable to easily bring in the international partners, funding, and technology needed for such a project. The political climate was simply too toxic for the free collaboration that science requires. The lack of high-resolution, publicly available data, the immense cost, and the political gridlock created a fatal combination. The story was too incredible to ignore, but far too problematic to pursue. With no new evidence coming forward, the world's media moved on, and the Cuban underwater city sank back into the abyss from which it came. A tale of two realities. Today, the story of the Cuban underwater city lives two very different lives. In the world of mainstream science, it is a fascinating footnote, a textbook example of geological pareidolia, and a cautionary tale of misinterpreting sonar data. It is a mystery that is, for most experts, solved by the simple, if less exciting, truths of geology. But online, in the vibrant world of alternative history and ancient mysteries, it is a legend. It is Exhibit A in the case for a lost chapter of human history, a prime example of suppressed knowledge. For this community, the silence isn't a sign of dismissal, but of an active cover-up. As one proponent wrote, "What happened to all the promises from the government, National Museum, National Geographic?" The unanswered questions are not obstacles, but proof of a deeper secret. What truly lies in the dark waters of the Yucatan Channel? Is it the tomb of an unknown civilization, a discovery that could change everything we know about our past? Or is it a stunning, magnificent trick of geology? A natural wonder that, for a brief, thrilling moment, looked like a forgotten dream? Without a new state-of-the-art expedition, we may never know for sure. The stones remain silent, holding their secrets under the crushing, timeless weight of the sea.